Dr. Charles Kupchan is a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, or the CFR. He's now joining us live from Washington, D.C. Dr. Kupchan, welcome to Wild DNA, and it's good to see you. Let's try and dissect these two statements, or developments, if you like. President Trump urges President Putin to spare Ukrainian troops on the front lines, all of them, and in turn, the Russian leader is telling the troops fighting in Kursk to surrender so that they can be spared. Your reaction?
Well, we don't know exactly what's going on the ground in Kursk, but it looks like the Russians are advancing, are surrounding Ukrainian troops that are still in that southern region of Russia, and probably have the combat capability to push the Ukrainians out. And I think one sign of whether we're going to see Putin show more flexibility, be ready to make some concessions, is whether he lets those troops return to Ukraine or whether he captures them and holds them as prisoners or hostages for the negotiations. Right now, Putin has indicated he's ready to talk, but he's also putting out conditions on those troops and on other issues, which make it clear that it may be quite some time before we get a ceasefire, if in fact we actually get there.
Dr. Kupchan, now that you've mentioned it, I wanted to talk about it, but now you've mentioned it, concessions. The world is still waiting with bated breath, the much anticipated Trump-Putin talk, but even that could happen, or even before that could happen, America, through its Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has reiterated the need for concessions, calling on both Ukraine and Russia to make compromises. Your thoughts?
Well, we don't actually know the details of what's being discussed. And I think it's a bit concerning that in his statements this week, Mr. Putin, although he said he was open to the agreement, also talked about caps on the mobilization of Ukrainian troops, no more Western weapons flowing to Ukraine. Those are demands that the Ukrainians simply cannot comply with because it would leave Ukraine exposed. It would allow Russia to regenerate while Ukraine simply has to sit on its hands. And so I think one concession from Putin will have to be to allow Ukraine to build the capability to defend itself so that Russia doesn't try this again. And perhaps in return, the Ukrainians could say, we will agree not to use force, not to use violence to try to retake those parts of Ukraine that are currently under Russian occupation.
We'll have to wait and see what happens, and we'll also have to wait and see if this ceasefire or truce talks will indeed happen. I've been talking to Dr. Charles Kupchan. He's a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. Dr. Kupchan, good to see you. Thank you for talking to us today.
Good to see you. Good night.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.